This is my personal best for Bloodborne All Bosses for my submission video for GDQx 2019. I'm the current world record holder as of the time of this video, and the time of the run is 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 44 seconds. So we're just going to watch that. I'm going to dub over it. I muted the sound because this is a VOD from my live stream to avoid having two of me talking at once. So just a little background on this run. It's all bosses outside of the Chalice dungeons. So every boss, including the DLC, including skips. So the run starts off pretty slow. We're going to be making our way to the Hunter's Dream, which is the hub of the game. Right now we're making our way through Yosefka's clinic, the first area. That wolf is supposed to kill you, but you can actually just run right by him. Also, you have what are known as iframes or invincibility frames while opening doors in this game. So if you're opening a door, enemies can't hit you. Here you see me doing a little animation cancel. It saves no time. Looks pretty cool. But we just picked up some vials for safety. And here we're going to warp back to the Hunter's Dream. Like I said, it's the hub of the game, so we're going to be doing all of our leveling up, upgrading our weapon, buying consumables. And you're going to see that I do a glitch here to grab 2 weapons at the start of the run. This is important because you need the threaded cane for a skip later on in the run. Loading screens are quite long in this game, but I run on a PlayStation 4 Pro with an SSD, so they're substantially shorter. But you saw there, I just equipped the saw cleaver and the hunter pistol, and grabbed some Molotov cocktails. We're gonna use those for the first boss of the game, who is Father Gascoigne, coming up in just a minute or so. So here's the first major skip of the run called Sewer Skip. It's quite difficult to pull off, but with a little bit of practice, I got it first try in this PB. Going to be utilizing some quit outs in this run, not very many, because you're actually not allowed to quit out on doors or other animations. So you see, when I quit out of the game, I spawned back on the fence, and that allows you to skip the whole sewer section and go straight to the first boss. You'll also notice that I'm going to be locking my weapon when I go into the cutscene. What this does is it makes your character run a little bit faster going into the cutscene. So just a little time save for cutscene bosses. And the strategy for Gascoigne is going to be to fight him on these stairs. And we're going to try to do as many backstabs as possible while throwing Molotovs, because Molotovs do a lot of damage to Gascoigne because he's the starting boss, and Molotovs do a flat amount of damage. Really good fight, finishing him off with the gunshot. And now we're going to make our way to the second area of the game. which is the Cathedral Ward. And this is where we'll be going back to many times in the run. So we're actually going to grab this lamp at the start, and we're going to use it several times because it's sort of a central area, and then it forks off into 3 or 4 other areas. So we're going to grab this lamp, make our way down into the lower area down the stairs, grabbing some more blood vials. Those are 100% necessary blood vials, because we're going to be taking some fall damage later in the run, and we need to heal twice for every drop. So that's 4 vials that we need at least. So we're going to talk to Alfred. You'd think this would waste time, but using this fire paper that he gives you on the first few bosses of the run is actually really necessary. It saves quite a bit of time, especially on these next 2 bosses, Blood-Starved Beast and Vicar Amelia. They both are really weak to fire paper, especially considering we don't have any upgrades on our weapon yet. So the only damage we have is coming from buffs. So we're making our way to Old Yarnum. This is the lower part of the Cathedral Ward area. And we're going to do our next major skip of the run, Old Yarnum skip. This skip it can look quite tricky to pull off, but it's one of the easier skips in the run, and it saves quite a bit of time. It saves probably around 40 seconds. Or 50 seconds. So it looks really cool. One of my favorite skips. And you're going to see we're going to go out of our way here to grab some Beast Blood Pellets, because these are actually the most important buff in the game. Beast Blood Pellets increase your damage by 80%. So we're going to be doing a lot more damage because of Beast Blood Pellets. Especially at the start here. If we weren't using pellets, these fights would take substantially longer. Grabbing some Bold Hunter's Marks. Those do the same thing as the Hunter's Mark, but they let you keep your blood echoes, which is like the currency of the game. So we're going to be using those at very specific parts to keep as many blood echoes as possible. So I used my fire paper, used my Beast Blood Pellet, and we're going to be trying to get as many backstabs on Blood-Starved Beast as possible. There's a quite scripted strat that you can do for this boss fight if you get lucky. I got semi-lucky on this fight in my PB. I had a few extra side steps here or there. But overall, it was a very good fight. And we're going to mark out with the regular Hunter's Mark. So we're losing about 10,000 echoes. But we need those bold Hunter's Marks for later. So we're not going to be using one of them now. Now making our way up to the Vicar Amelia fight. So we're just going to send this elevator back down for later, because there's another area that we need to access when you go up the tower instead of down. I'm going to use a point gesture here. It just makes it a little easier to walk off that ledge, not having to let go of the control stick. And we're going to access an area that you probably didn't find in your first playthrough. It's called the Abandoned Hunter's Workshop. It looks very familiar. It looks identical to the Hunter's Dream. But I guess this is the Hunter's Dream in the real world. That's the 1/3 of umbilical cord. We're gonna need 3 of those to fight the real, true endgame boss. And also, I grabbed the doll set. The doll set can be sold for about 35,000 echoes, and we're gonna use that to level up early on. And since we have to go back there anyway, not a huge deal, not a huge waste of time, considering you're getting a ton of levels for it. And you can see this is why I picked up those vials in the start of Cathedral Ward, because right now I only have 1 vial left. So you definitely need to grab those. I just used one of those thirds of umbilical cord, and that gives you 3 insight. Also, I did a quick glitch there called ladder warp. After doing an animation, if you quickly press X next to a ladder, your character will kind of snap towards it like they're about to climb it. But then you'll still be able to walk around. And what this lets you do is quit out of the game and then warp back to that ladder. So it saves about 20 seconds. And this is the only time it's useful in the entire run, surprisingly. There aren't that many ladders that you can actually warp back to and save time. The Vicar Amelia fight, very scripted fight. Staggering each limb one at a time. Using the pellet and paper, like always. Going for the visceral attack with full beasthood meter. And again, focusing on each limb individually. Get a little bit of chip damage here. It's intentional. And that's the end of that fight. So Vicar Amelia, one of the harder fights in a casual playthrough, absolutely annihilated in the speedrun. And she gives us the password to go to Bergenworth, or Forbidden Woods. And you're going to see we're going to quit out here, taking advantage of that ladder warp we just did. And this saves about 20 seconds. Now we're going to make our way down to the Forbidden Woods. Grabbing some upgrade materials on the way. And we're actually going to use the gold pendant that Maria gave us. And we're going to use it for a very specific reason. There's one single boss that is affected by the gold pendant that we're actually going to fight. And that's Dark Beast Parl. He takes extra damage from this gem. And that's the only reason we're going to slot it. And it saves a little bit of time. And we just grabbed a bloodstone, or a gemstone, sorry, that we're gonna use to slot our weapon. And it's gonna give us some bonus damage. So by the end of the run, we're gonna have some better blood gems. We're gonna have 2 18% blood gems and 1 15% blood gem. So that's 51% bonus damage simply from picking up these extra items. And some of them are really out of the way. But it's definitely worth it. Warping back to the Hunter's Dream, we're gonna sell the doll set that we picked up earlier, and we're going to level up our weapon and level up our character. We're gonna buy some Molotovs, sell the doll set, make our way up to the Insight Bath. So Insight is a secondary currency. You get more insight the more you progress through the game. So you'll notice I'm at 0 now. So you have the perfect amount of insight to level your weapon to +4. And I slotted 2 of those blood gems that I picked up earlier. The one that I picked up before Forbidden Woods, and the one that I got from Amelia from the gold pendant. Leveled 25 strength and 19 skill. And we're going to warp back to Cathedral Ward, sort of the central area. And we're going to intentionally die to an enemy around the corner here. This enemy actually takes you to a later game area that you can access before you'd normally be able to access it in the story. And you can actually kill a boss called Dark Beast Parl, and it gives you access to Bolt Paper. So we used Fire Paper for the first few bosses, but we're going to be transitioning to Bolt Paper because it's a little bit quicker to buy. Also faster. You can kill Parl later, but it requires you doing a very tricky skip twice. So we want to only do that skip once. We can avoid that by coming here. It also gives you access to 3 Twin Bloodstone Shards, so that lets you take a slightly faster route in the Forbidden Woods when we go there. Using the Fire Paper early, using items at the end of stamina bars is typically optimal, because you cannot run while equipping an item, so you want to use an item while you're regaining stamina. As you can see there, I used the pellet at the very end of my stamina bar. And same thing with Parl here. We're going to stagger all of his limbs, but he has significantly less health than Amelia, so we only have to stagger 2 of his limbs to get the kill. Very scripted fight. And we're going to go back to the Hunter's Dream. This time we're going to buy some more blood vials. And this is the biggest amount of blood vials we're going to buy. We're going to buy 11 here. And these vials are going to last us for most of the run. We're going to grab some more later on as well, but for the most part, that should be sufficient for the rest of the run. And I also bought some bolt paper. We're going to use those bolt papers on the next few bosses. Normally, if you fight Parl later in the run, you would not have bolt paper for these next few bosses. Making our way down to probably one of the scarier fights in the run. This fight can be really scary. It's 3 bosses in one. It's a 3-way gank fight. And these guys, they hit like trucks, and we don't level any vitality in this run, so they can kill you very quickly. No more than 2 hits. And I'm going to kill this Wandering Nightmare. He gives you some upgrade materials. So we're going to be using Molotovs basically just for those guys, because it's a little bit faster. And we're going to grab a few more Beast Blood pellets around the corner here, just for that damage, because they're completely necessary for this run. Without Beast Blood pellets, this run would be substantially slower. It's probably the most overpowered buff in any Souls game. So here, we're going to take the left path here instead of the right path, because we killed Parl early and had access to those 3 Twin Bloodstone Shards. We can take a slightly faster path. Running past some snakes, they can't do much. And we actually land on one of those snakes' heads to gain some health back. Just a little optimization. It saves you from needing to use 2 blood vials, and you only have to use 1. Saves a little bit of time. Forbidden Woods is probably an area you got lost in your first playthrough, but speedrunners, we know how to get through it. We've done it thousands of times. Making our way down to Shadows of Yharnam. Again, using a paper, using a pellet. Buffs are really important. And the strategy for shadows is to try to get as many double hits as possible. So you want to be hitting 2 or more at the same time. It can be difficult to do. I don't get very many of them in this fight. This fight wasn't great, but it's better than a lot of shadows fights can go. It can go south pretty quickly. So we're focusing on the mace guy first. He has the least amount of health. Then we switch to the katana guy. And he goes down. And this last one can be AI looped indefinitely until he's dead. That was a pretty good fight. Making our way to Bergenworth. And you're going to see the next major skip of the run called Lunarium Key Skip. And it saves about 40 seconds. Quite tricky to pull off. I'd say this is probably the most difficult skip in the run. So what we're going to do is try to jump off of the tail of this enemy here. And that fireball will one-shot kill you, so you got to be really careful. And we get it first try in the PB. Get over the railing. Saves about 10 seconds over the quit-out version, which essentially does the same thing, jumps off of the tail. And Rom, what to say about Rom? Rom is probably the most RNG boss in the entire run. Rom can kill a run very easily. There are some safer strats, but since this is an attempt at the most optimal run, we're not going to kill the little spiders. So you want to stagger Rom before she teleports, and that gives you an opportunity to kill her without her moving at all. Usually she'll move once, and that's fine. You have a setup to instantly teleport to the next area if you get the 2 cycle, as we call it. Very good fight. And now we're back at that area, the Yahargul, which is the area where we killed Dark Beast Parl. But this time we're in the story, so we have access to more of the area. So we're gonna make our way down to the dungeon area to grab a key for Upper Cathedral Ward. That's gonna be very useful. We're gonna use that later in the run to access an optional area and kill 2 more bosses. Dodging some enemies here. They can't do much. Enemies in this game, very easy to run past. This pickup can be kind of scary, grabbing these bloodstone chunks. This enemy can just one-hit you very quickly, and you're not paying attention. You can get killed pretty quick there, and that'll kill your run. So now the fan favorite skip of the run, Yahargul skip. This skip, it's you either get it and you go through the fence and you land safely, or you die. Those are the only 2 options. Or you don't go through the fence at all. So right here, I believe, yeah, I didn't get through the fence, so I had to quit out there. So there is a setup for the second try here. And there we go. Sometimes you'll just fall through that second last platform there and just die. It can be annoying. It doesn't lose that much time, so thankfully there's a lamp right there. And we're just going to grab some more bloodstone chunks and bolt paper for upgrade materials and also buffs. Right now we have 6 bolt paper. We'll be using all of those throughout the run. And we're going to grab the Yahargul armor set. Seems like it's kind of out of the way to go and grab some new armor, considering armor is for defense, typically. But actually, in Bloodborne, armor can be useful for offensive purposes as well, because it has more beasthood, which essentially makes the meter that pops up on the screen when you use beast blood pellets, it makes it larger, so you do more damage. Using our paper early again at the end of our stamina bar. Using the beast blood pellet and entering the worst boss in the entire game. This boss is terrible. There's not much to look at. Not much of a fight. You essentially just stagger lock him to death. Similar to Amelia and Parl, he has many stagger spots that you can stagger. Each of his legs, his body, the actual main head part there. And that's the fight. You can very easily die. But if you play it safe, not too big of a deal. Making our way into the lecture building, we'll be grabbing the lamp here and using it to come back for another optional boss. So now we'll be making our way to the next area of the story called the Nightmare of Mensis. This is one of the scariest areas because it's very long and it's not necessarily difficult to get through. It's very long. If you die, it's a very long run back, so you can lose a significant amount of time in the Mensis. We're going to quit out here to de-aggro this Silver Beast because he can kill you very easily while you're trying to kill this lizard up here to get some more upgrade materials. We're going to kill this lizard with fire because fire actually gives them a faster death animation. And we're going to make our way back to the dream here. This is our second level up. We're going to get 32 strength and 25 skill. And we're going to upgrade our weapon to +8 and slot some more blood gems. $32, $25, and making our way up to the workshop to get +8. And +10 is the maximum upgrade, so only 25 minutes into the run and we're already at the maximum upgrade, or close to the maximum upgrade. So we're going to be doing a lot of damage. The bosses from here on out are going to go much more quickly. Save the next two bosses. The next two bosses are among the longest fights in the game, just because they have so much health. And this is a super long running section all the way up to Mikolash, the next boss. And again, we have invincibility frames when opening doors, so when I open this door here, I'm going to turn around to make sure nothing blocks me, but I believe, yeah, this guy gets in the way. No big deal. Making our way through the spider room. And now we're coming up against a very difficult fight. This guy is really hard to avoid, as you can see. Very difficult to avoid. And now we're going to grab the first of uh, blue elixirs, which are basically a consumable that makes you invisible. Like transparent. If you get close enough to an enemy, they do see you. And we're going to use that a couple times in the run to get past some sketchy areas. Just equipping the blue elixirs there. And making our way up to the only fight in the game that is 2 pellets. So every other fight in the game is less than 1 minute long because the pellet lasts for 1 minute. So this is the only fight in the game that lasts longer than 1 minute. Again, transforming our weapon into a cutscene a little bit faster. I got bad RNG there. Mikolash will sometimes turn directly into the room where you need him to go. And here I'm doing a cool strat. Mikolash will just start attacking you if you hit him 3 times. So I hit him 3 times as he was running into the room there, and he just started walking back. So it saves a little bit of time. It saves the amount of time it would take for you to walk over there and kind of lure him back into this hallway. Very good start. And this lizard here, we ran out of Molotovs. We're just going to kill this guy with a few R1s because we have some leftover Beast Hood meter from Mikolash. This is the last vial pickup we're going to grab in the entire run. There are some other safety pickups. I don't remember whether I grabbed them or not, but I'm pretty sure that's the last necessary pickup. And bad RNG again. He can turn left immediately. It only wastes a few seconds. But overall, if you get both of those, it's about 10 seconds faster, so you can save significant amount of time by getting lucky. Another cool strat, blocking Mikolash in the doorway here so that he can't go into his last cage area. That saves about 40 seconds. It's quite a long run up, and then you have to wait for the gate to open up. Pretty good fight. And now we're going to go very far out of the way to get another one of those blood gems. And you'd think that that would be a waste of time. But since it gives you basically plus 20% damage, so another fifth more damage, it's very, very useful. And it's going to save time basically on every single fight until the end. So although it takes quite a while to go down here and grab this blood gem, you make up that time and more. This is probably one of the scariest parts of the entire run. These winter lanterns inflict a status called Frenzy, which just instantly takes away 80% of your HP. So when that bar fills up, it can be pretty scary. But I got the good luck there. Not going to get frenzied. Making our way up to the next boss, Murgo's Wet Nurse. This boss, kind of a joke. Pretty long fight, so some memes can happen. You can lose a lot of time. I got a very good fight in my PB, so we'll get to see that. Grabbing blue elixirs makes this section much, much easier. I'm going to use a blue elixir to get past some of these enemies at the top of the stairs. Grabbing some more upgrade materials. That will get our weapon to plus 9. And then we will get plus 10 later. Grabbing another blood gem. That's the last blood gem of the run. So now we have two 18% blood gems and a 15% blood gem. And we're going to equip all of those after Murgo's Wet Nurse for a total of 51% bonus damage. Very significant. On top of the 80% pellet damage, we're dealing quite a bit more damage than than the normal saw cleaver. Using a bolt paper on the elevator to save a little bit of time. And right into the Murgo's Wet Nurse fight. Building up Beast Meter using transform attacks. They're the fastest way to build up Beast Meter. And then once it's almost full, we transition over to R1s because they're faster. They use less stamina. They do a little bit less damage. But overall, more damage per second is the name of the game. Very good fight. Very good attacks. And she goes down pretty quickly. One of the longest fights in the run, though, for sure. And very good fight. So now you have to wait for this baby to stop crying. It takes a long time. It's for lore reasons, but speedrunners, we don't like it. Wasting time, not moving. And we're going to make our way back to the Hunter's Dream. Going to slot all 3 of those gems, those blood gems, for the 51% extra damage. And we're going to upgrade our weapon to +9. Since we're already there. And we have the materials. So +9, slotting the remaining 2 blood gems. And now making our way back to the lecture hall building to do a skip called Lecture Hall Skip. Now, it took me several tries in my PB. It's a very difficult skip. It only really saves time if you can get it in under 3 tries. But it's a very, very tricky skip. It's pretty difficult to pull off. I believe it took me 6 tries. 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. And making our way to the Nightmare Frontier. So I definitely lost time on that skip, but if you get it, it's definitely worth it. Saves about 15 seconds. And this next skip coming up is called Nightmare Frontier Skip. This skip is great because it skips the Poison Lake, which is one of the worst parts of the game. I think everyone agrees. But we can skip the entirety of it. And this skip saves about 35 seconds. So I tried a new setup here. It didn't work, so I reverted back to the old setup that I know how to do. So we're going to get really close to this ledge, turn around, and quit out as we're falling. And what that does is it puts you a little bit lower so you can bypass the kill box that most elevators have if you fall from the very top. Lets you bypass the entire swamp area. Pretty cool skip. Making our way down to the amygdala fight. One of the harder fights casually, I think, but in the speedrun, you absolutely destroy her. Make quick work of limb stagger mechanics and beast blood pellets. So we're starting off by staggering the head, getting a few hits on that while she's down, and pretty fast finishing her off before she even has a chance to do an attack. And warping back to the Hunter's Dream. And we're going to do our last level up right now to 44 strength. Right there, and making our way to the back of Yosefka's clinic. So Yosefka's clinic is the area where we actually started the run. And there is a back area that you can't access because there's a locked door. But if you go there from the back, you can get another third of umbilical cord and the Canehurst summons, which we're going to use to go to another optional area. So another pretty long running section. Lots of climbing, lots of running. Grabbing some beast blood pellets again. We ran out and we need them for the next few bosses. Just 3 more there to tide us over. Soon we're going to be able to buy beast blood pellets. And another pretty cool skip here. It only saves about 15 seconds, but it's really cool. It's called cave skip. So you clip out of bounds, drop on this tiny rock, land back in bounds inside the cave. Very cool. Pretty tricky to pull off, but one of my favorite skips. Now making our way to like a minute straight of climbing ladders. Very thrilling. One of the most boring parts of the run, probably. Making sure to heal so we don't die from poison, because that would suck. Making our way to the back of the clinic. So if you actually go to this area before the Rom fight, you will have to fight Yosefka. And again, we need those to fight the last boss, the true last boss. Now we're warping back to the Hunter's Dream, and we're going to make our way to Upper Cathedral Ward. One of the scariest parts, in my opinion. Lots of places where you can die. And I think Ibritis is probably the hardest boss outside of the DLC, casually. But again, abusing stagger mechanics, we can very easily kill Ibritis, whatever. Using another third of umbilical cord. And equipping the threaded cane. So this is the only time we use the threaded cane in the entire run, is for a skip coming up here. I'm going to quit out here for safety. And just dodge some enemies here. We're now pretty much at our end game build, so we're doing a lot of damage. Okay. So now we're at the Upper Cathedral Ward, so that's why we grabbed that key back in Yahargul. Going across this bridge can be scary. There is a consistent way, though, to manipulate their AI, so you can just run right by them. So you run against that wall a little bit, and you can just run right between them. Pretty cool. Now we're coming up to that skip with the threaded cane called Orphanage Key Skip. And it skips running around a large portion of the Upper Cathedral Ward. So we're going to use the jump attack from the threaded cane. It has really far reach, so you can actually hit this enemy through the door here, lure them over, and kill them through the door with the saw cleaver. Really cool skip, saves about 50 seconds. And now we're grabbing that hunter's badge. This lets us buy beast blood pellets. So now we no longer have to grab any extra beast blood pellets. We're going to be buying them from here on out. Really frees up the routing. There aren't very many beast blood pellet pickups, but thankfully they're all at the start of the game. So we can get a lot of beast blood pellets at the start, and then by the time we're this far in, we can buy them. Celestial Emissary, probably one of the easier fights in the game. They can be pretty scary. They can kill you pretty quickly. But making quick work of them there. And now we're going to make our way to Ebrightus, one of the hardest fights. Definitely the fight that gave me the most trouble in my first playthrough. But again, you make quick work of using stagger mechanics in this game. Using the last of our Madman's knowledge there, getting up to 60 insight will be the goal to buy a Blood Rock, which is the last upgrade material you need to get plus 10. So we're going to get a few hits here to try to stagger this one tentacle. Using a bolt paper while we're waiting. Hitting her as soon as the health bar pops up, and you just get a stagger lock, and she's dead. Just like that. Very difficult fight, made very easy. And we're going to warp away. So we just got rid of like 60,000 blood echoes. But it's not worth it to go back to that lamp to do another level up. We're just going to upgrade our weapon one more time, and that'll be the final upgrade at the Hunter's Dream. So we're going to be unlocking the DLC here. Grabbing a slightly better armor set because it doesn't waste any time. And getting picked up by this amygdala and taken to the DLC. And now we're actually going to fight what most people would consider to be the first boss in the game, but surprisingly, this boss is completely optional, so you actually don't have to kill the Cleric Beast to progress in the game. And I think most people probably killed Cleric Beast first. But we're just going to go back with a fully upgraded weapon and kill him in like 6 hits. Or 5 hits now, with new stats. So he goes down really easily. Another long running section to get to the Cleric Beast on the bridge. unequipping my hunter's mark there, because I won't be using it again. Going the same way we went for Father Gascoigne and Sewer Skip, but this time the dogs are out, so sometimes they can hit you as you're running by, which can be really annoying. But they were nice to me. Opening this door, which is supposed to be a shortcut, I believe, but we're using it to go straight to the Cleric Beast. Not using a pellet on this fight because it actually wastes more time than it saves, because the fight is already so fast that eating a Beast Blood pellet is just a waste of time. So killing Cleric Beast in just 5 hits. Grabbing some extra Quicksilver bullets for the final fight of the game, where we will be using the parry mechanic some more. And now we're going to the DLC, which can be difficult, but for the most part, the bosses go down pretty quickly, so won't have much trouble there. Buying some more pellets, buying a blood rock. That'll be the plus 10 weapon that we just got now because of the blood rock. Another long running section here. We're going to use our last blue elixir here. We're actually going to buy one more blue elixir for a later area, but for now, this will be the last time we use the blue elixir in the run. So here we're actually gonna go up and fight this boss, but right now we can't. He just doesn't want to fight us. So we're gonna grab the eye pendant, which we're going to use to progress after the first boss, which is Ludwig. So this guy doesn't want anything to do with us right now, but when we come back, we'll fight him for sure. This guy can be pretty scary. He can block you in the door, cause all kinds of problems, make you quit out and lose a lot of time. Running past these Gatling guns, they don't do much. They always shoot at the exact same time, so if you know which way to run, you can avoid them pretty easily. Quitting out here, normally you use a blue elixir. It's actually a little bit faster to just quit out here. And of course, Bloodborne is timed using in-game time, so quitting out doesn't lose any time. We're going to kill these two guys in the door. They'll block us otherwise. So making our way through this area. This is probably one of the longest runbacks of the entire run. Taking about 3 minutes to run back to Ludwig. So if you die, losing a lot of time. But Ludwig, pretty consistent. He's 100% consistent if you can time your dodge correctly on the last phase. You're gold. This can be pretty scary. This guy can shoot you anywhere from 1 to 3 times, usually once. If he shoots you 3 times, you're dead. If he shoots you twice, you're fine. So as long as you don't get shot 3 times, very, very rare, but it should get past that guy. No issues. Using our Beast Blood pellet, we're not going to use a bolt paper for Ludwig. It actually doesn't save a hit. So just be a waste of time to use it. Waste of time, waste of resources. Just going to use a pellet. Staggering his back leg, moving forward to his front leg, then to his head, and another stagger lock, and move to his back leg to get him into second phase. Now he's got a big sword, really scary, but he's dead. It doesn't matter. He takes too long, visceral attack, and he's dead. Really scripted fight, pretty fast. Probably one of the scarier fights in the DLC for new players. And now we're making our way to the research hall. This is by far the scariest area in the DLC. I have died so many times to research hall. Thankfully, it doesn't waste that much time, but if you're going for a really optimal time, it's pretty sad dying here. These guys, they're really fast. They do a lot of damage, and it's very unfortunate. Sometimes you can get unlucky. Putting out here resets enemies' AI so you can run around them. For some reason, these enemies have some sort of trigger to aggro onto you when you enter that big room before the stairs. But if you quit out, it resets that. So they kind of just stand there. It's really weird. They'll attack once you get really, really close. But those guys on the right there, they just stand there. This guy can be pretty difficult to get around. Sometimes he just runs at you, gives you a break. We're actually going to shoot this guy off of the stairs here because he can shoot you with his Gatling gun. For some reason there, he decided he wasn't going to stagger. So that was kind of scary, but he missed. So it's fine. That guy can be pretty scary as well. A lot of scary guys in Research Hall that can one-shot you. Running through here on the rafters. These rats can be kind of annoying. This whole area, probably one of the worst areas. Taking the stair elevator all the way down to the boss, healing in between drops. And this is the Living Failures fight, so probably one of the easiest fights in a casual playthrough, but it's very, very scary in the speedrun. They do a lot of damage, they attack very quickly, and you only have 10 vitality, so it can be quite scary if you get hit by one of their attacks. This guy kind of went AFK on me. Was able to kill him pretty quickly, and now you can camp the spawn, because they always spawn in the exact same spot. And this is always the first one that spawns. Sometimes the one across, like you can see there, spawns in, but this guy will spawn in immediately after. So you can camp this spawn, dodging the magic attacks from the far failure. He didn't give me any magic attacks here. Very, very lucky. Very good fight. We're going to quit out here to abuse a mechanic that causes you to keep your beast hood meter through a quit out screen. So we had full meter from that fight, and we quit out to keep it at full, and we can reuse the pellet to keep full beast hood meter and keep maximum damage on the next boss, because the next boss is just right up ahead. Lady Maria is another fight that probably gave people a ton of trouble. In the speedrun, though, you make quick work of Maria. She dies very, very quickly. Using our paper, using our beast blood pellet. Doing 3 attacks at a time, so we do have enough stamina to do 1 dodge if she does an attack that can't be staggered. Quickly gets her to second phase. you can actually hit her while she's transforming, and then when you go back in, you've done so much damage, she goes straight to phase 3, and then you do so much more damage that she doesn't get a chance to move. So very quick fight. Very technical. And now we are going to wait for this big clock to rotate so we can go to the fishing hamlet. And the fishing hamlet contains probably the fan consensus hardest boss in the entire Souls series, Souls and Bloodborne, Orphan of Kos. I think most people would consider Orphan of Kos to be the hardest boss in the entire From Software franchise. But we make quick work of him, using and abusing backstabs, which cause enemies to take more counter damage, which is a multiplier on top of your already ridiculously high damage. So you'll notice the second hit of every backstab will be a lot more damage than the first, and he dies pretty quickly. There is a glitch where you can use poison knives to freeze Orphan, but it's a little slower because you have to buy the poison knives, and the fight itself is a little slower as well. But before that, we're going to come up to the next major skip called Fishing Hamlet skip. And Fishing Hamlet skip saves about 45 seconds. I don't remember. But using a slope quit out there, the game doesn't register your fall damage until after you fall. So you have a little bit of time there to quit out, and you will spawn down at the bottom without taking any fall damage. Pretty cool skip. Another one of my favorites. And then you just roll on these rocks, and you pop down right in front of the Orphan of Kos boss fight, which is really cool. I think that's awesome. Again, we're going to be transforming our weapon here to run a little bit faster through the cutscene. Using our pellet here, and we're going to go right into Orphan. We're going to backstab him as much as possible. And you can see we just did like 3,000 damage on one backstab, so it's very, very high damage from counter hits. Fighting this boss unlocked gives you a lot more freedom of movement. That's why I'm not locking on. Once he gets below half, he can either transform right away to phase 2, or you can actually bait his AI to do another jump attack, which is a free backstab. Here he starts to transform. I tried to bait him again, but didn't work. And if you time your backstab just right, you can get him right before he moves. Sometimes he'll do his lightning attack, and that's very bad. But if he doesn't do it, it's free. That's the end of the fight. Very good fight. And now we're actually going to grab the item that we need to fight that boss that we saw at the start before Ludwig. So we're going to grab Lawrence's skull. It's underneath this elevator. And if we do a pretty precise drop here, we can drop all the way down without dying and grab his skull and then run behind this statue to mark out of there without getting hit. Going back to the dream, we're going to make our last stop at the shop. We're going to buy one more blue elixir for a later area, and we're just going to dump the rest of our insight into pellets and paper because we have so much. You can only carry 10 pellets at a time, so what I'm going to do here is buy only 10 to avoid getting that prompt that tells you that you've exceeded your limit and that they've gone to storage. So it's a pretty small optimization, really cool. We're going to make our way to the final DLC boss. This is another scripted boss. He dies pretty quick. making our way past these enemies yet again. Some of these enemies can be pretty scary. They can hit you as you're running by, and that can just start a chain reaction of getting hit by random enemies, and then you're dead very quickly. Because again, we don't level up any vitality in this run. Because speed. Using our bolt paper super early there because we have to wait for the door. And we're going to stagger Lawrence's leg right into his face. And we're going to just catch him as he's stepping back to get a quick counter hit. Going to stagger his other leg. Abuse this overhead slam attack quite a bit. It gives you a lot of opening to attack. Stagger his arm. Get a few more hits in there. And then he's going to go straight to phase 3. And then he won't even have a chance to move. He just dies because our damage is so high. And we're going to make our way back to the Hunter's Dream. Simply to go to the next area. Because you can't warp between areas. You have to go to the Dream every time. And we're going to make our way to Hemwick. So going back to where we killed Vicar Amelia. And we're just going to turn around and go to that extra area that we just skipped over. Like I said, Cathedral Ward is the sort of the central area of the game. It connects a lot of the later areas. And this is one of the optional areas that we didn't go to yet. So this is a super long running section. Not much content. Not much to talk about. But at the end of it, we get one of the greatest bosses ever conceived by Miyazaki himself, the Witches of Hemwick. Incredibly complex boss. Lots of really good mechanics. We're going to abuse a mechanic called damage, where we kill the boss in 5 hits. And it's not very eventful. Again, you get iframes while opening a door, so those dogs, they don't do much. And if they do block you, you do so much damage that you just one-shot them. Running past these enemies might look a little scary, but for the most part, they do the exact same attacks every time. So if you manage your stamina in the right way, you can very, very easily get past a lot of these enemies. There's a dog here hiding in the shadows. He tries to get you, but you strafe it. We know he's there. He's not fooling anyone. And using our last blue elixir here, we have to use it quite early because you actually can't use beast blood pellets while your elixir is active. So we want it to run out before we get to the boss. So we're going to eat our beast blood pellet here right before the boss trigger. And 5 hits. Lovely. Very well designed boss. And 5 more hits. And it's over. Lovely. And we're going to quit out on this barrel. It saves like 2 seconds. But it spawns you back at the start of the room, so you don't have to run there. But because you have to go out of your way to get on top of that barrel, and you have to wait a couple seconds before quitting out, it only saves roughly 2 seconds. And it takes 20 seconds for the loading screen, so you can see why maybe not the best for RTA, but for in-game time, saves a couple seconds. Definitely worth it. And now we're going to use the Canehurst summons that we grabbed in Yosefka's clinic to get taken by this carriage to Canehurst. And this is the last boss before the 2 endgame bosses back at the Hunter's Dream. So the home stretch, this is probably the longest run back of any boss. So dying to Logarius is very, very scary. It's killed a lot of really good runs. But if you're careful, you can make quick work of Logarius, because you're supposed to fight him a lot earlier in the run. But we have some pretty OP damage. Waiting for this door to open. Sometimes those enemies will chase you. They do a lot of damage. So you definitely want to be careful. Make sure you're listening for those enemies behind you. Making our way through the castle. This is definitely one of the coolest areas. It's very, very awesome. The snowy rooftops in particular, very cool. One of the few times that FromSoft did a snowy area correctly, where you can actually see where you're going. And just a quick skip there. It might be dev intentional. Some people think that is developer intended, but I personally think it's just a little bit of an oversight. You can jump on top of that bookshelf and skip having to run all the way around the side there. Making our way to the boss along these rooftops. Very easy to fall off, so you gotta be careful. Very thin walkways, especially up here. Up here, you really gotta be careful that you don't fall off. So another boss with a cutscene. We're gonna transform our weapon going into the cutscene. Like always. Makes you run a little faster. And before that, we're gonna eat our Beast Blood pellet. No bolt paper again on this one. It actually doesn't save a hit on Logarius either, so using a bolt paper is just a waste of time. Gonna do a couple of staggers here. That's a scary attack. That double skull attack can happen. But we anticipated it, and we dodged it. Getting the backstab here, finishing him off with a visceral. Very clean fight. Pretty textbook. And making our way back to the Hunter's Dream for the final 2 fights of the game. Gehrman and Moon Presence. I think Gehrman and Moon Presence are probably the 2 hardest bosses. Not individually, but together, they make up probably the hardest segment, or one of the hardest segments in the entire run. Simply because The goal is to kill both bosses with a single pellet. So you have to kill Gehrman very quickly in order to have enough pellet left over. So I actually got a pretty flawless Gehrman fight in this run. He doesn't even move. Abusing parries and counter hits very beautifully. Getting him down to half health here, so he's going to transform, giving us an opportunity to go behind him, get the quick backstab, and that's the fight. Very beautiful fight. Couldn't have gone better in any way. And now we have full beast meter for Moon Presence. So this fight is going to go well. It's going to go well, no matter what. Little bit of a mistake there, but we're finishing off Moon Presence here. And that's the run. That's Bloodborne All Bosses. And we quit out to check our in-game time. And it was a 105.44. Very awesome run. I hope I can showcase it at GDQx 2019. Thanks for watching, guys.